welcome yet again to another episode review for The Wind in the Willows. Yes, this is another classic. Well, they all are really, but this one is a real classic for me, and I'm going to explain why as we get into it. So, without any ado, let's go straight in. I'm going to play the episode right now. Okay, so this is The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Now, this one is by Rosemary Ann Sisson. We haven't had that many reviews of her script so far. So just to recap, she did 8 episodes of the first series. Well, she actually wrote all the stories for the first series. But yeah, wrote the script for 8 of them. And this is one of those episodes that's directly from the book. So there were, as always, a few chapters omitted when the film was made. And this was one of them, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. And it occasionally gets omitted out of other adaptations as well. But the reason it's so special to me is I remember this extremely well when it was when the series was repeated on Channel 5. It's actually the first one I saw. I don't know if anyone remembers, but back in 1997, when Channel 5 began as a channel, they showed The Wind in the Willows. They repeated the whole series in the what became the Milkshake slot, which is still going today, slot for children's programmes. And I remember very well, one day I was flicking through the Radio Times, and lo and behold, I saw The Wind in the Willows listed in Channel 5, and it wasn't completely clear if it was the Cosgrove Hall version, but it looked pretty like it was. And I remember the description of it was Portly strays and gets lost, which of course is what happens in this one. So of course I tuned in, and there it was, an episode I'd never seen before. I don't remember it when it was shown in the 80s, and to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong anyone, but to my knowledge I don't think this episode's been released on VHS, or it wasn't back in those days. So I saw it and I thought, wow, this is such a beautiful episode it is. And as you can kind of see in this one, the narrator, Ian Carmichael, is actually narrating for much longer than the usual length. And I love that it's a very nice, slowly paced opening. It takes a little while to get into the episode. Introduces us to the seasons really nicely, the season of summer, of course, and it's just beautiful. It's a very haunting episode. It's a true favourite of many people, I think. Certainly those who worked on it. It just seems to be one of those that people just remember, and I think part of that is because it is directly from the book. It's one of those chapters in the book that's very dark and mysterious, haunting, all about this so-called Piper at the Gates of Dawn that looks after animals in trouble. It's like a spirit, if you like, or like it was a difficult character, if it is a character, difficult character to realise in visual terms. Illustrators always struggled with it, but Cosgrove Hall came up with a really nice way of representing this character, and we'll obviously talk about that when we come to it. So this one, like I say, it is special to me for those reasons, and Rosemary Ann Sisson, of course, did some beautiful scripts, wonderful scripts for this first series. And on the whole, they're not as humorous as the Brian Truman scripts. They're a bit more serious. This one in particular, I love it because it's so in touch with nature, and it's most of it is outdoors. I just remember it so well when I first saw it. It was on at, I think, 8 o'clock or 8:05 in the morning, every Sunday morning. And of course I tuned in for every episode after that, even though I'd missed the first 11, because this is, of course, is episode 12 of the series. But thankfully Channel 5 repeated them again, so that was the time in 1997, 1998, when I managed to record and see all the episodes I'd never seen before, and build up the entire collection. So it was wonderful. So thank you Channel 5 for repeating them. So let's talk a bit about the episode. So far, what's happened is there's been this this terrible noise that's suddenly come. Ratty seemed to know what it was, drags Mole away from it, and he's just revealed there that it's an otter hunt. So already it's very dark, very dangerous. And now there's concern for Porty as Porty's hat there. We had a shot just then of Portly sort of looking a bit shaken up. I'm not sure where to go. Look at that! I love the way the light hits the house there. There's some beautiful, it's beautifully shot. This one thing to point out. You see on Ratty there the kind of shadowy effects. That's the ripples of the river, and I presume they had sort of gizmos, bits and pieces in front of the lights to get that effect. You sometimes see it in Ratty's house as well, though not so much here. But in certain episodes, you just got the reflection of the light onto the water. It's just a lovely attention to detail there. Now, one interesting difference between this and the original book is that Toad isn't involved in this chapter at all. In the original book, he's actually in prison at this point. Although, have I got that right? He might have just escaped. I think he's in prison at this point for motoring or stealing a motor car. But I very much like that Rosemary and Siston brought Toad into this. Adds a bit of humour, doesn't it? Adds a bit of kind of comic relief. Particularly this, I love this sequence, this shot. Struggling with the map. And this would have been Barry Purvis animating this. Of course, it's because it's the first series. Barry continued to animate Toad from the film into the first series, and of course started directing from the second series. So, Badger, he's kind of, it's almost like Council at War, isn't it? He's kind of like, he's got everyone together. They're working out a plan of looking for Portly, trying to find him. This is a nice touch as well with the weasels. They're sort of, we think they're up to something sinister, but in fact they're going to be helping, which is nice. A nice side to the weasels that we don't often see, but it's there in certain episodes. So they're basically talking about who's going to cover what, where they're all going to go. And Toad, of course, is being quiet now, finally. But it's lovely. I mean, it's kind of, they're all very concerned, of course. They're concerned that Portly's gone, concerned for Otter. And like I say, this is where the weasels come in, and it's just a really nice touch that we see this nice, caring side to the weasels. Henchman, he's very much just in the background. He doesn't speak at all in this episode, but he's there, you know. Now, there's a line the chief says here. There, I've got a nipper myself. A bit out of place because we never have a hint that the chief's got kids of his own. Ever again, you know, and. That just shows where there's a bit of a disconnection between Rosemary Ann Siston's scripts and Brian Truman's scripts. The word is that Rosemary Ann Siston wasn't keen on doing more after this. I think she wanted to move on. She wasn't overall keen in adapting the book into further stories. So, yeah, fair enough. I mean, Brian Truman, of course, came on, and we all know what a fantastic job he did on the scripts. But like I say, I do like these episodes. There's something kind of magical about them. This is a nice sequence, a little montage of all the characters looking for Portly, and they still haven't found him. Let's have a bit of water. Very hot here today. I'm doing this on a Saturday night, and it's very, very hot. Oh, very hot, which in fact it is in this episode. As it said at the beginning, it's been fiercely hot. And I mentioned it was the midsummer day, which was recently, I think. So yeah, I tried to get these episodes in the relevant order. Now this is very touching. This, you know, we can see how upset Otto is. He's very sad. There's some beautiful, kind of sensitive animation here, and this is in fact the early Otto puppet. Otto pops up occasionally in later episodes, and he's a completely different sculpt. Not quite sure why they did that. So there we go. The weasel's obviously just as concerned as everybody else. So, and what follows here is very dark, I think, you know, with Badger's dialogue coming up. And again, it's from the book, like he's saying here. So he's saying if he is still alive, which I very much doubt, which is very sad and it's very heartbreaking. So this now is Toad and Badger. This is the last we see of them, apart from very short sequence at the end. And from now on, we're with Ratty and Mole. We're pretty much with them for the rest of this episode, and the key to the whole episode is about to come up. And I've already said the lighting in this is so beautiful, and I've alluded to the fact before that lighting wasn't considered to be a serious kind of role or a serious aspect of filmmaking at Cosgrove Hall at that time, which is crazy. When you look at episodes like this, you think, wow, they've done a great job. With the spotlight there, reminds me a little bit of the Great Steamer. We saw that spotlight in that episode. And we just get a sense of a real scope of the whole riverbank here. I mean, they obviously had a huge water tank built around Ratty's house, and then they of course had these stretches of river, which would have been kind of a hangover from the feature film. And it's just beautiful. Look at the stars as well. Look at that shade of pink just above Otto on the right there in the sky. You just get hints of it on him as well. Just beautiful. And it's wonderful where everything comes together. You've got like the music, the sad music there, and the flutter of wings there, and tear in Otto's eye. So it's just a nice balance going back to Otto and back to Ratty and Mole, you know, back and forth. The Ratty and Mole there, almost silhouettes. Look at that shot, isn't that beautiful? I mean, I'm amazed that was a set. I mean, it was probably a miniature set, or I mean, Barry, if you're watching, you can let us know. I'd love to know how this was shot. So there's this weird piper music in the background now. And unusually, we do have the narrator coming in again. Very unusual that happens so late on in the episode. Look at that beautiful light just behind the tree there. And it is very much from the pages of the book, this. It's exactly as it's written. You know, it's just, we don't quite know what we're hearing, what we're seeing. There's just this suspense, and we're totally with Ratty and Mole all the way. We as an audience are wondering what's all this about, and it's just... And I'll tell you what, the first time I saw this, it had a real effect on me. I mean, in 1997, I would have been 16 when this was repeated, 16, 17. And... but even at that age, I was just kind of transfixed by this. You know, it was, 8ish in the morning on a Sunday, and it was just lovely. I'm reminiscing. Can't stop reminiscing. So here we have this voice. These kind of haunting words. Look at that lovely shot. So many effects in this episode. And these words again are straight from the pages of Kenneth Grahame, straight from the text of the book. The way Mole says "I'm afraid," though, I always thought it was a bit odd, just the way he delivers it. But Ratty sort of brings it down to earth again, says "not afraid," and kind of. And I remember watching this with. I was showing this to my parents, and first time my dad watched this, when it ended, he said, yeah, that's an unusual episode. It really is. It's probably, out of all of them, it's probably the most unusual episode, this, in that it's, nothing to do with Toad's crazies, nothing like that. It's all about the world of the Wind and the Willows, the true world of what it really is, and what that world was that Kenneth Grahame created. So there we are. There we have this figure. So they've represented this kind of half human, half kind of ram-like character. And some illustrations in books are kind of a character with hooves. With there we've got a really nice glimpse of him there. And then we come back to him and we see that he's like this statue. So maybe for that period of time then he was kind of alive. But like I say, in illustrated books we've seen this character, and he's very much an alive character, looking after Portly, looking over Portly. There's Portly there. If you look carefully, you can just see the soles of his feet. Very worn. Could have been dressed a bit better. And everything I've worked on, if you saw the bottoms of characters' feet, you'd have what we call foot bottoms to cover them up. Sometimes it's just cardboard or silicone, but there you just see the fact that it's just the plates of the armature there. So I think there's a bit of paint, but it's scratched. And it doesn't matter, we can figure them. Portly's a lovely little puppet as well, isn't he? He's so cute. Just dots for eyes. So Portly's basically trying to make sense of it all as well. He doesn't know what's happened. None of them do.
Where is he? Come on, Portly. You want to see your father again, don't you? And you'd like to have a row in Mr. Rat's boat.
It's interesting when you think about the crew on this one. Like I say, you've got Barry animating. And yes, just double checking, yeah, Jackie Cockle directing. And when you think of the amount of output from Jackie Cockle, the amount of episodes she directed, she's so versatile, even in, when yes, it's the same series, but this is so different from so many other episodes. So here we go. Happy ending, of course. Otter and Portly reunited. And again, the light of the following morning there. And they've been up all night. They've been up all night on that magical rescue adventure. And I like this dialogue here, where he says, "I feel dreadfully tired." And then he corrects himself and says, "Oh, no, actually pleasantly tired." Now look at their seats, really interesting. I've learned a lot about the props of this series, and you can see how wider Mole's chair is, and that of course is so that the puppet can actually sit on it. Ratty's of course got a narrow one there. So they've got chairs especially made for them. Obviously the props are made for them, but we assume that they got the chairs that way in the first place, as animals, as characters. This is a nice little montage at the end. It gives us the sense that the characters have been on the lookout all night, rather than just going home, going to bed. It's a nice touch there, rather than just assuming that it's only Ratty and Mole that really want to do all they can to help. It's kind of even the weasels, it's just nice, and it wraps it up beautifully. And that final line there, where the narrator ended with the words, "Only been the wind and the willows," so it's the voice of the wind and the willows. So it's almost like the spirit that looks after the animals, and almost kind of like it's the one that defines the series in a way, in that these characters, through all their other adventures, are looked after by this spirit that guides them, and there's comfort in that. So great balance of like in the credits, like it says sunshine and shadow, a great balance of the light and the dark, good and bad, which not every episode has. and no, like I say, no episode has it more than this one. So yeah, beautiful episode. I'm sure it'll be a favourite of many of you watching. So please do leave comments and leave your thoughts on it. Almost over too quickly. There's so much to say about it, but yeah, beautiful script, beautiful adaptation of the book. It's one of those where it's funny. I used to watch this a lot with my dad, and he'd always say, "Oh, let's put A Wind in the Willows on." And he'd always say, "Is the weasels in this one?" I'm like, yes, the weasels are in this one. Yeah, so there we go. That's The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Thank you for watching. So yeah, the weather is very hot here in the UK at the moment. So it's very appropriate that the next one that I'm reviewing is Fighting Fit from season 4. Very appropriate because it's set in July, and as the narrator says at the beginning, it was July and it was hot. And I assume it's going to stay hot for the foreseeable future, which is great. Summer is most definitely here. So thanks again for watching. Please do keep the comments coming, and please do subscribe. And I will see you in a week's time for Fighting Fit. Thanks very much. See you soon.